Hi, beautiful. You do know you're beautiful. If you don't, it's because of the stories you tell yourself. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, are those limiting stories that keep you playing small. My name is Katherine Erickson, and I am proud to be a visionary in Project Positive Change. We are taking our messages out to the world to change that negativity to positive improvement, action, energy. And my thing is all about stories. And that's why I created heart dancing. Heart dancing is a way to live authentically from your heart. And I'm not talking about your organ. I'm talking about the metaphysical part of you that's connected to something bigger. Because you do know you came from something bigger. You are a being of light. And I define being as born to express the infinite nature of God. B-E-I-N-G. Born to express the infinite nature of God. And if everyone believed that definition and actually lived that definition, I wouldn't need to be talking about limiting stories. But the great thing about living now in time and space in a physical body is that we do get to choose, we do get to experiment, and we do get to explore what it means to be or not to be, what it means to have this duality that we live in. So our beingness is sometimes covered up by our humanness. And so my goal in my work, in heart dancing and in everything I do, is to show you, to gently lead you back, to shine a light on that part of you that will stand up and say, yes, I am a being. I am born to express the infinite nature of God. Now, why do we tell ourselves stories? Well, it's a physiological reason. And I'm not a doctor, so this is going to be a very surface explanation, but we are bombarded in every second by trillions of bits of data. And our brain just can't handle it. Our physical senses can't handle it. Have you ever been somewhere and someone says they're cold and you say, there's no way, what are you talking about? And you're in the exact same room. It's their interpretation, their feeling, their sensories. It's different than yours. You can never experience what they experience, and they can never experience what you experience. And there's a good and bad to that. But getting back to stories, we create stories because our brain cannot handle all this data that's just coming at us. So we have to filter it out. And when we start to create language and patterns, that's one way we filter it out. And then on top of learning the language, learning the words that identify things, we start to put stories. So when you're growing up and you see a cup, you know that's a cup as a child. But when you happen to be the one to reach up for that cup and you really shouldn't be doing that, and the milk falls on the floor and your mom gets upset, now it's more than a cup. Now it's more than milk. Now it's more than you trying to get to something that you wanted. You just created a story about yourself. Maybe it was being clumsy. Maybe it was don't try because you might upset your mom. I don't know. It's up to you what you created. But my point in my teaching is to show you that you have created a story. And if it's holding you back, that's okay. You have to recognize it. So how do you do that? Well, I came up with a process called Story Alchemy. And it's in my book called Heart Dancing. And Story Alchemy is a 4-step process. Number one, you realize that you created the story. And you don't really need to go into the reasons why, because once you realize that you were the one who interpreted that event that way, No one else did that for you. Then you can move to step 2, which is taking responsibility. And taking responsibility is moving back into your own power. It's moving back into your creativeness, your source. Because when you are responsible for your stories, you're responsible for changing them. No one else, just you. You see how this all circles back around to you? And this is where I always stop in my workshops and ask people to point to themselves. And go ahead, if you would do that, just point to yourself. Okay, I can't see you, but answering my own question, I'm going to point right here. This is me, Catherine Erickson. And notice I didn't point up here to my head. I pointed to my heart. And I bet you did too. And so that's where that is where our authentic stories come from, is from our heart. The limiting stories never come from our heart. They always come from our head. So once you start recognizing that and realizing that you created it and you're responsible to change it, you can move to the 3rd step of Story Alchemy, which is to reframe the story. So if you were that child that spilled that cup of milk and then absorbed the message that you're clumsy, and then you move through your life, you grow up, you go to college, etc., and you have that story filter of being clumsy, guess what you're only going to see in your life? Evidence of you being clumsy. You're never going to see the times that you were graceful or that you moved smoothly. You're only going to see the clumsy, because the story filter is like a pair of sunglasses. You're only going to see what it lets in to your perception. And that's why I love to say that we don't see with our eyes, we see with our minds. And if you can flip that and see with your heart, your life will totally shift. So the last step of Story Alchemy, after you've reframed the story, is to release and forgive. And that's a huge step for a lot of people. That's where people get stuck. Releasing just means you're going to start telling yourself the new story instead of the old story. But forgiveness, forgiveness is the kind of the stepping stone or the barrier. It's how you approach it. And I feel so strongly about forgiveness that I'm about to come out with a new ebook called Drop the Leash. And look for it on Facebook. I'll be advertising it there as well as on my website, catherineerickson.com. But just know that no matter what story you've told yourself, no matter what place you've put on yourself, what guilt, you are loved, you are worthy, and you are beautiful. Thank you for joining me in the sweet spot of the heart dance. Until next time, bye.